is a doorway to the discovery of your strength.
Life through a lens that nobody ever gets to look through because I'm dying and I know it. Everybody else is dying and they don't know. And I get a haircut that I would have never had before. I was always afraid to kind of get a edgy, cool haircut. The universe decided for me and I'm like, yeah, I'm a badass. That haircut is, I can rock it. So yeah, so many good things about having brain cancer and the hair just being one of them. We're all just on a different journey. I don't think anybody set out, even the ones who prayed for my death, did it to be malicious. I believe everybody who was doing something thought they were doing the thing that was gonna honor God. To the people in that culture, that really was love. Although what they've asked for has come to me, maybe that's why what's happening to me is so love-filled. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I feel like I'm winning and somebody doesn't have to lose for me to win. We can all win. We can all be here to learn something. We can all enjoy our lives. But I will say, a lot of those people that prayed for my death ended up with gay kids. I'm just saying. Most of those kids called me up afterwards and said, man, you were really inspirational for me. Thank you for holding your head up and not saying, okay, I'm not gay. Thank you for saying, no, it's not a sin for me to say this. The sin is for me to lie about it. And I'm like, it makes me feel so good. Because not only was I helping myself, I was helping people I didn't even know. So the story when I came out of the closet began when I was 38. At the beginning of my marriage, I figured I loved my ex-husband enough that I would be able to figure out a way to have some feelings for him romantically and sexually. And when that didn't happen, I realized, oh, I'm missing church. Maybe maybe church will help. So we started going to a Baptist church and we got pretty involved. And so for me, it was like the more I read the scriptures, the more I was convinced, well, the answer for me is to fix myself is in the scriptures. So like I do everything, I'm head first into definitely going to figure this out, and I'm going to figure out how to not be gay. What I had been sort of hoping would be the thing that would fix me was actually the thing that was showing me that I had less reason to have hope in that. So I told my ex-husband that I was gay, and he took it really well. My ex-husband and I have known each other since I was 16 and he was 26. And by this point, we had been married for 18 years. He was my best friend. I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to split the family up. I just wanted to be honest. My ex-husband and I talked through what would life post me coming out would look like, and I think we both felt pretty hopeful and good about it, like, oh, we can still love each other, we can still be friends. About a week later, he met with an elder, the pastor, and the associate pastor, and told them that I had come out to him. And at that meeting, they advised him to not speak to me anymore, that he had to show me the consequences for my sin. He came home, instead of being friendly, he wouldn't speak to me. He told me I could talk to his lawyer, that the church was helping him hire, and he took all of my things out of the bedroom, threw them in the basement, said if I didn't want to have sex with him, I was going to have to sleep somewhere else. I remember being 5 years old and having a crush on my mom's best friend. And I used to pick flowers for her, and leave them on her doorstep and knock on the door and run away and watch her from afar so I could see delight on her face when she saw these flowers. That had nothing to do with sex. My little 5-year-old brain couldn't even wrap around that. I didn't choose to feel that way. It was a romantic feeling. I remember feeling jealous of her husband. And I just wanted to marry her. There's a Psalms that says, "You knit me in my mother's womb, and I am fearfully and wonderfully made." And I thought, yes, I didn't make this up. That just was how I was made. There's a new phrase that I've heard recently. It's called compulsive heterosexuality. You have to go through these motions as though you're heterosexual, because if you're not, you didn't have the option of having a family. So what I'd been doing my whole life is trying to become something that everybody wanted me to be and expected that I already was. What I really wanted to do is just tell the truth. I just wanted to rest in my truth. I just wanted to rest and not pretend like I was somebody I wasn't. I just wanted to rest. I was so tired. It was a relief. There's no way to ever describe that to somebody who hasn't lived their entire lives having to pretend like they were somebody else in order to make sure that the people that love them didn't flee and run from them in disgust. So to me, it felt amazing knowing that the people that love me still love me for the most part. I lost some family members, I lost some friends, but it was really the universe taking the trash out in my life. The ones that stayed just made that bond of love so much stronger on their end and on mine. I was very clear on the distinction between the church and God. And there's never a time I felt like I had the two confused. God was always faithful. I've never gone a day without anything I've needed. Maybe sometimes something I've wanted. There's a verse in 1 Corinthians 13. It says, "And these three things remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love." And it's so significant because that is a verse where God rates love as more important than faith. When Jesus would go through his ministry, and the Pharisees were the religious people that were very haughty and felt like they knew everything, and they were anything but acting the way that God wanted them to, which is like the way a lot of modern day fundamental evangelicals are. Maybe my ministry is to connect with people who feel if there's one little check in their spirit that it's okay, and maybe I can show them. One time I was at Atlanta Pride, and there are always demonstrators who were with their megaphones and their signs, "God hates fags." I said, the scriptures say that religion that is pure and acceptable to God is to visit the widows and orphans in their time of affliction. When was the last time that you visited widows or orphans? You're here on a Saturday in Piedmont Park in Atlanta, screaming at strangers that they're going to hell. So what hope do they have? You're not here giving hope. But it's a beautiful day. You could be painting some widow's house, her emptying her gutters, or when have you volunteered with the Big Brothers or Big Sisters or took a foster child in? Like, when was that? Because the Bible says this is pure and undefiled religion that is acceptable to God. And he took his Bible and his sign and he left, crying. That was healing. The healing part for me is every time I have a conversation where I can take all of the scriptures that I memorized, trying to fix myself, and no, that's not why God had me memorize all of those, because I wasn't broken. It's to turn around and tell people, here, you might be mistaken. Let's look at this again. I actually have a Bible that I have passages marked that are always the ones that I go to just keep the conversation short. Because usually the ones that I use are not ones that people can get around. Even just the question of, are you willing to hold yourself to the same standard that you're holding me to? They don't want to give up shrimp or wearing mixed fabrics or having a garden, because the Bible talks about all those things in terms of being an abomination. But if we just go back to these three things remain: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. What that means is that if your faith is keeping you from showing love, your faith is what needs to be abandoned. That's from the Bible. People's sexuality is a lot more fluid than, as a culture, we even have allowed ourselves to admit. Especially women, they're somewhere between straight and gay, and they're floating around in the middle. Whenever I think about these young kids now who are having these experiences where they're like, I'm not sure what gender I am. I'm not sure what my orientation is. I'm just exploring it, and I'm loving people for who they are. And I'm like, this is the greatest thing in the world. This is the way it should be. This is the way, we don't have to label ourselves. We can just be who we are. Two of my friends went to a Bon Jovi weekend where they got to meet him. So they said, we told him that we had a friend who couldn't come with us because she was recovering from her brain tumor, and he said, send her my love. She's like, I almost told him that you probably would go straight for him. And we kind of laughed about it. It was funny, but then I started thinking, would I? And I thought, heck yeah. Shit, yes, I would. So, like, even me, who I feel like I'm a pretty hardcore lesbian. John Bon Jovi? Yeah, I think so. When I got my diagnosis, it was during COVID. Can't have anybody with you. I had my surgery alone, my radiation alone, my chemo alone. At the time, I almost felt relieved that I didn't have a person that I was in love with. I thought, thank God, I won't have the pain of letting go of somebody. So it was kind of a surprise to have had a relationship spring up in the middle of realizing I had cancer. She's a physician's assistant, medical background, a couple of degrees from Vanderbilt. Like, she's just so smart. She's just a lovely human being. It started out with her saying, I'm attracted to you. And I was like, oh, that's nice. Also, I'm not, I'm dying. And so I'm not going to get involved with a relationship right now. But aren't you straight? She's like, no, I'm not, but I'm not out. I was really honest at the beginning that I'm not a good closet dweller. It's not something I want for myself, but I certainly understood where she was at. And so the understanding from the very beginning is I can't date you if you're still in the closet. And I just was supportive of her, and she was supportive of me. But as it happened, there was a particular day when her child came out to her as trans. And she felt very free to come back out to her child at the same time as gay. She actually said the most beautiful thing, which was, how can I let my child have more courage than I do? How can my child be the one who's leading? And if my child can find the courage to come out to me, then I can find the courage to come out to my family. So she's out now. A lot of our relationship is she works on taking care of me, looking for trials. My chemo is going to stop in a few months. And she's like, there's a new trial that they're doing in England, and you have this marker for your brain cancer that most people don't have. They're looking for people with your stuff. And I'm also understanding when she gets a terrible text from her stepsister, like, how dare you date a woman and you're going to kill our parents, and the Bible says it's sinful, and she's crying. What do I do? How do I even respond to this? And for me to be able to say, it's okay. This is how they all act at first. And eventually they'll see that you're not different, you haven't changed. The only difference is maybe you bring a cute girl to the family dinner that they all end up loving. To have something like this surprise you out of the blue when you're not expecting it, by this person that's just a lovely human being, and you're like, wow, thanks universe. Thank you again for making my life so beautiful. Normally when you're in a relationship, you think about the future. And so you start trying to lay a foundation to build something on. And every time she would talk about, wouldn't it be fun for us to grow old together and have a goat farm and our grandkids could come play there? And I thought, yeah, it would. And I was like, what am I entertaining this for? But then I realized, because I can. And it gives me joy and it gives her joy. And I don't have to close myself off to something because somebody told me my body was about to do this, that, and the other. I've done everything to the extreme. I've loved to the extreme. I've learned to the extreme. I've faced scary shit to the extreme, and I feel lucky. I just do. There's nothing about me that feels bitter. I had 2 amazing kids. I got to stay home with them every single day. I had the privilege of educating them to the point where they both got full scholarships to college. Nothing to be bitter about. I had the best life ever. It's really been an amazing ride. What I would want my grandchildren to know about me is that I'm a badass, and so are they, because they've got my DNA. Life is not always going to be an easy thing, but it's always going to give you opportunities to do things that are scary as hell. And then you can still stand up and own your shit and let the chips fall where they may. It's really easy sometimes to take the path of least resistance, but it's not nearly as fun.
I got my own lane. I'm doing my own thing.
I'm still learning what death has to teach me, what the diagnosis of terminal brain cancer is teaching me really is such an ongoing process. And I'm an eager student. If I was going to talk to somebody else who just got diagnosed, I tell them to find the humor in everything. Why stop laughing because you now have a better idea of the time that your life is going to end?